Whether you're an experienced producer, a beginner, or you're too scared to even start, it's easy to doubt your ability to create music that sounds extraordinary. But if you have at least one of these 7 signs, then you're probably destined to create some of the greatest music ever made. Let's get inspired. Sign number 1, music makes you emotional. Now, if you get an emotional reaction to songs, lyrics, and music that you like, you should know that this isn't particularly normal, and it's a gift. So I had this musical keyboard when I was really young, probably like 5 or 6. And every time you'd hit the demo button, it would play this crappy version of Wham! Wake Me Up. I used to hate hearing this keyboard demo because it made me so sad and I had no idea why. The song was released before I was born, I had no idea who Wham were, and I've never had a girl love me and leave me before. Maybe your eyes water or you get goosebumps when you hear something mad, like an EDM track with a crazy production technique. Or a certain vocal harmony from a singer.
And I got work in the morning, early in the morning.
Most people hear music and enjoy it the same way someone would enjoy some tasty food. But there's a difference between enjoying some tasty food and that same food making you want to become a chef. So if you get unexplainably emotional when you hear music, then it's probably a good sign that you were meant to create it yourself. Some people just don't have those same reactions.
If I can take a sound out of heaven and put it on a fucking computer, that is mad to me. Like sometimes when I'm making music, I cry because I'm like, it hit me that hard, if you get what I mean.
Sign number 2, you always hear music. If you can't help but hear melodies and rhythms in everyday life, then again, that's not a normal thing, and you have another gift. I don't know about you, but I could never seem to ignore how pigeons repeat the same rhythm over and over again. Also, in the bathroom in my old house, I would hear this boiler click and I'll just start beatboxing along with it. I remember another time where someone hadn't turned off the tap properly and it was dripping in this interesting rhythm. I looked around like, can't anybody else hear this rhythm right now? Why does it loop so perfectly? This is wild. Again, when I was really young and someone was running the water or taking a shower, I used to lay outside the door with a towel over my head, close my eyes and just listen to the sound. Or I might have just been walking in my grandma's house and froze when I heard a plane fly overhead. Aeroplanes always had this particular sound that was so fascinating to me. I could go on and on, but you get the idea already. If you've had any similar experiences, chances are sound and music are calling you and you're deeply connected to it somehow. You're probably destined to make bangers, just like all of the greatest producers and composers in history. Sign number 3, you see things. Now this will happen differently for different people. Some producers like Pharrell have synesthesia, which means they see colours when they hear sound. A lot of times a sound might even paint a brand new picture in your mind. Some producers even like to have images in their studio when they're producing. But I think the weirdest one is when you have a nostalgic image of something you may or may not have experienced in the past. It sounds weird, but this piece of music gives me a picture of being in a nursery. When I heard this for the first time, I was like, wait, I've been here before. But how can you be inside a song, let alone a song you've never heard before? I still get this image of a nursery hallway and like toys on the table. There has to be something crazy going on deep in the brain when this happens. Which makes sense because music is often used as therapy for people with mental illnesses. Again, this isn't going to happen for your everyday person. So when music can conjure up images for you, naturally your music is going to be more creative and vivid. Because you have such a strong vision for your music before you've even made it, it's going to have a way bigger impact when it hits the listener, which is exactly what we want. Sign number 4. You are opinionated. When you find yourself debating with your friends about who is the better artist or who has the better album, just know that that is actually a good thing. For as long as I could remember, I've always had a strong opinion about what sounds good and what doesn't sound as good. I was never one of those people that were like, well, every song is good in its own kind of unique way. And while that's technically true, it didn't matter to me. I didn't care. If it wasn't good to me, then it wasn't good. And especially with albums, I'd be unconsciously ranking the tracks And usually the ones that I thought were the best turned out to be lead singles, way before I knew what a lead single was. So these strong opinions that you have are a sign that music means more to you than it does to the average person. It also means that you probably think you can do a better job. That confidence and passion will lead you right down the path of making some crazy bangers in the studio. Sign number 5, now this is the crazy one. You have a great musical memory. If you find it easy to remember melodies or structures of your favorite songs, then that's probably another sign that you are destined to make bangers. Even if you don't have perfect pitch, you probably have good relative pitch. That means you can tell if a note or a melody in one song is the same or similar to one in another song. You might even get songs confused with other songs because they sound so similar. Or maybe, like me, you can guess the song after only hearing it for 1 second. These are all signs that you have a strong relationship to what you're hearing. And I guess in a way, your brain is telling you that for whatever reason, what you're actually hearing is very important. Your brain is saying, maybe you should pursue music in some kind of way, instead of you just dismissing these weird moments and moving on with your life. If you weren't destined to make bangers, then you wouldn't even notice that something sounded familiar to you. Sign number 6, music comes easy to you. Now this is what some people call talent. It means you already know how to do at least one musical thing really well. Maybe it's making melodies, programming drums, or just knowing how to choose sounds. If at least one music production skill comes easy to you without you having had much experience in it, then that's great because you're making a head start on your musical journey and you're playing to your natural strengths. As a producer, I'm definitely not great at everything, but luckily rhythm has always come natural to me. And as a piano teacher, I find it quite tricky to teach rhythm because I've never had to learn it or have anyone teach me what it was. You still need to work on all the other areas of music production, but having talent or skill in at least one area shows that it comes easy to you, and it will most likely help you create something way above average. I know, we're getting deep in this video. Sign number 7, you're always learning. If you find yourself always trying to know more about music, then that's a big sign that you were destined to make bangers. I used to always listen to instrumental versions of my favorite tracks. This made it easier to understand what was going on in a different context. I would also spend hours and hours on Wikipedia researching the discography of producers or reading about the life of composers. I learned who produced specific tracks, how they became producers, what things they learned, and who they like to listen to. Rarely do I hear the best musicians say that their passion for music is just mid. And let's be clear here, I'm talking about some of the most creative musicians, not these manufactured pop stars. Sometimes you might feel like quitting on your producer journey, but all this learning is a reminder about just how obsessed with music you are. The fact that you get inspired by watching producers like me on YouTube is just a clear sign in my opinion. You have to remember that not everybody gets as excited about music as you do. Some people prefer painting or football. So because your obsession is not a typical thing, you won't be making typical music. Now, one key ingredient to making music that bangs is great sound selection. So watch the first of this 2-part video where I explain exactly why it is so important.